Thank you everyone for joining today. Many of you know me already. I'm Aldas Kriauciunas, the Executive Director of our Purdue EMBA programs. I'm really happy to be joined today by one of our recent alums, Brett Damisch. Brett will be answering questions along with me during today's presentation. We'll have Brett introduce himself here in a few slides as well. So, a theme that we emphasize in all of our meetings, and we will today, is the subtitle, Choosing the Path That's Right for You. We think we have a great program at Purdue, but we want to make sure it's the right program for you. So we talk about fit, making sure that you'll gain the benefits that you're hoping for in undertaking an EMBA program, and also that your presence, your participation contributes to the overall learning of the cohort. So, many of you have been thinking about EMBA programs for a while, and really there's three main categories of programs to be considering. One are the online programs. They've become certainly more popular in the past year. They provide you flexibility. You can do them from pretty much anywhere in the world. The main drawbacks are, as we can see in our photo, is you're interacting with the screen primarily. And while Zoom and these other technologies that we're using today have a role to play, we think that for working professionals, especially the type that we're attracting to our program, there's something more that they can be gained with a different format. So evening and weekend formats try to compensate for some of those drawbacks of purely an online program. You take your education interactions in small chunks, if you will, which can fit with most schedules unless you have travel, significant travel for your work. But some of the drawbacks that we see with that, one is that most people live within an hour or two of campus, so you don't have that range of backgrounds as much. And then the other is most people come right before class begins, leave right when class ends. And so that outside of the classroom interaction is relatively low, which in our view, that's where a lot of the ties are formed and the unstructured knowledge sharing and networking takes place. So Purdue and about a dozen universities across the US have what we call a residency format. Other schools call them immersion weeks. It's the same idea. And so with that, we come together less frequently, in our case, about once every 3 months or so. But when we do come together, it's for a longer period of time, 1 to 2 weeks. And so by doing it that way, when classes end at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, people are not driving home. Some of you are within driving distance, as Brett was when he went through the program. But you stay on campus, everyone stays at the same hotel, be it in West Lafayette, or maybe we're in Utrecht, the Netherlands. And so classes end, you may be working on a case study, on the project, maybe going out for dinner with your classmates. And it's those interactions that we feel are just as valuable as what's happening in the classroom. So I like to say that there's certain lessons and things you can only do in the residency format. Here we have a photo of Brett's classmates. He's probably somewhere on this boat, just not visible in the picture. And so this was an exercise that we did in one evening, pre-COVID clearly. And so the idea was to not only talk about communication and teamwork, but actually experience it. So Brett and his classmates, they worked with the Purdue crew team about effective rowing. And then as we can see, they experienced it real time. The two boats are actually connected, so there was no risk of them flipping or anything like that. And so they had what I like to call real-time feedback loop. Were they floating with the current, or were they able to go against the current? And so it's one of these, what I call, hands-on activities where they're learning, they're trying, gaining that management knowledge in a new type of environment, forming bonds, having a good time, and something that they can reflect on 5 or 10 years down the road, where these, well-accomplished professionals are taken out of their comfort zone. Another thing that we try to do within our EMBA program, and gain these lessons when they have other challenges to do at work. Quick overview of Purdue University. We just celebrated our 150th anniversary 2 years ago. It was a big deal, and Purdue continues to be a leader in many areas. We're part of the Big Ten. And while today we're focused on the EMBA, There's 12 different colleges here at Purdue. So the resources, be it library, online resources, are available to you as a Purdue student. So if there's other areas of interest to you, you can tap into those. Purdue's, I think, top 10 in the nation for commercialization of patents on innovation, on entrepreneurship, many different areas that Purdue is well known. We have over 600,000 Purdue alumni around the world, close to 50,000 credit alumni. We have our executive MBA, of course, alumni, chapters in pretty much every city and in 50 countries around the world. So while your cohort may be 25 or so people, you're part of this much broader Purdue community. And as I've traveled around, most people know Purdue University. If they don't know Purdue, they know our most famous alum, Neil Armstrong. So it's a conversation starter in any regard. And also what I've noticed is that Purdue alumni are particularly loyal alumni. If you see someone wearing Purdue clothing, you know they have a connection to the university. And people that maybe wouldn't have started a conversation will walk up and say, you know, what's your connection? Did you go there? Do you have a family member, a friend? And it just starts conversations. The more you get away from West Lafayette, the more likely that's going to happen, because everyone in West Lafayette wears Purdue clothing on a given day. As we move forward in today's overview, something that we'll talk about are who your classmates would be. We'll do a deeper dive on the blended learning format, since it is fairly unique as a way to learn. We'll talk about the benefits to both you and your company, your organization, because an online weekend or evening MBA, you can pretty much do without letting your company know. You cannot do a 1 to 2 week residency without your company knowing. You know, or else people say, Dion, why are you going to West Lafayette for vacation again? Isn't going to work very well. So having those conversations are critical in what you do. We'll talk about getting that support. And then if interested, we'll talk about next steps to join our program. So in sharing this, these are just some of the companies represented over the past 3 years in our program. And the theme is really that there is no theme, if you will. We have different types of organizations, for profit, not for profit. We have government, we have defense, military, high tech, finance, and more. And these are just some of those companies represented. And the reason this happens is because with our quarterly on-campus residencies, people can and do live anywhere in the world as they go through the program. So really what connects the people, the managers, is that they want to learn from others and increase their career opportunities, either within their current organization, a new organization, or potentially building out their own company. So here we have a 3-year rolling snapshot of what our cohorts have looked like. Let me overview this, and then we'll have Brett step in and talk a little bit more about his own background and how he does or doesn't follow some of these pie charts. So in terms of years of work experience, minimum of 5 years, because that's the point we see people start having more of that management and leadership responsibility in their career. No maximum, certainly, and we've had people turn 60 while in the program and at different points in between within their career. Positions very much match the years of work experience from analyst on up, with about 10% entrepreneurs running their own businesses. Current industries, again, a nice array of different backgrounds, one sector dominating, if you will. So you're in a classroom of people in different sectors, different companies. And then for geography, about a quarter live in Indiana, about a quarter throughout the rest of the Midwest, a quarter across the rest of the US, and then about a quarter international. Works out pretty nicely in that. With our global executive MBA that starts this March, it's a little bit higher on the international background. And then our traditional executive MBA starting every September, a little bit heavier on the Indiana and Midwest representation. So let me pause there so that Brett can talk a little bit about his own background and talk to this 4-part background as well.
So yeah, thanks Aldous. I was a Purdue graduate in 2010 and went and moved all over the United States, the Midwest, Texas, and I knew that I wanted to eventually get back and get my MBA. I just didn't know how I wanted to do it. And I'll always remember that I was in a sales meeting in Minneapolis, Minnesota, when Aldous called me and started telling me about the MBA program. And with the executive MBA, I didn't know the difference between that and online. And I'd heard some things from people online saying, you know, online's a really big struggle. You have to be super focused. And just, you know, I'm not the type of person that's going to get home from work and sit on my computer for another 10 hours and bust away for an online program. So after Aldous talked to me and spoke about the cohorts and residencies and so forth, that really sparked my interest. So at the time I was currently working for Aprilaire, and I knew that they had a tuition reimbursement program. So I just went to my boss. I was in account management on the aviation side of the business, and they did see, you know, potential growth in me and so forth. And they said, hey, we'll sign off, we'll pay for it. And they worked numbers and so forth with Purdue, and we made it work out that they were able to reimburse the MBA. And it was, all this 18 months, like 18 of the fastest months of my life flew by. And you know, last night I was still texting with my group that's from my class of 2020. We were in Madrid this time last year, coming back from our international residency. And, you know, I keep up with all those people. I network with my whole group. I decided to take a different career path after I graduated with my MBA, and reached out to them for networking and interviews and seeing what else is out there. So it's not just, yeah, you get a great education from Purdue, and it's a great program to if you focus in on all the different aspects of an MBA. It's not necessarily finance focused or accounting or marketing focused. You get everything kind of in one bucket per se. So I enjoyed the program immensely, and it's helped me out a lot with my career and moving forward. That's another thing, is now that I've got that under my belt, it seems that since I've switched companies now, the growth within the company, now that I have that MBA behind me, is the opportunities are endless. So I've got to give that to Aldous to moving me into the MBA, executive MBA, because honestly, I didn't know what an executive MBA was before we had that conversation.
Very good. Well, you know a lot now, that's for sure.
Yep.
So thank you. And then we'll be having Brett share a bit more on some of specific questions that we'll have as we move forward. So after what you shared fits very well with the next slide, where I talk about the curriculum. So the curriculum for both our global executive MBA and traditional is quite similar. And I divide our courses into three categories. One are what I call the functional courses. So these relate to the functions that really any organization needs, large or small, for-profit, not-for-profit, just for its day-to-day, if you will, survival or to exist. All companies need some type of marketing, if you will. They all have organizational behavior, leadership challenges. In this day and age, they all have some IT element in terms of what they're doing. They all have operations, accounting. So all those, just the day-to-day of what's happening. Environmental refer to things related to the outside environment that firms are working within. And then the integrative require really understanding the functional, environmental, those pieces. And then these integrative bring it all together and bring its own level, if you will, of concept or theory. So for example, negotiations, our view of negotiations, it's not a zero-sum game, but each participant in a negotiation has something that they want to maximize. And so by understanding the other person's perspective or position, which may be different than what you want to maximize, you're able to actually make it better for both sides through that negotiation. Entrepreneurship, again, another area where understanding all these pieces can make you be much more effective. And as Brett said, it's not an MBA in finance or an MBA in marketing. There are programs like that. MBAs in healthcare have become very popular over the past 5 or so years. But our view is that we want to cover the topics that a general manager needs to understand, to ask better questions, to pull upon the experts when needed, and push back on them as the case may be, and really be able to understand the trade-offs that one is making as a general manager or higher within the organization. So let me talk about the blended learning format, and then I'm going to quiz Brett. He didn't know he'd be quizzed today, but no such thing as a pre-lunch, Brett. So, and he can share some of his perspectives here. So both of our programs are 19 months from start to finish. They both begin with a 4-day online program launch, during which time you meet the members of your cohort, you start working in your study teams, you learn about the technology that we're using in the program. A lot of shifts over the past year. In fact, Brett would not be familiar with any of them almost. We now use Zoom, we use MS Teams, and then our platform for curriculum is something called Brightspace. So those are what we're using. And we also use 100% ebooks as well, because it's just so much more convenient for our students. And then you take a class session for each of the courses in that first module, so that by the end of that online program launch, you've met your fellow students, you've met the people here at Purdue that will be supporting you during your EMBA journey, and you meet all the faculty and take a class session for each of those first courses. So you have that foundation set, and then you start the pre-residency. Tends to be 8 to 10 weeks of online work. And so during that time, you're reading within the ebooks based on the syllabus that faculty have prepared. You're watching videos that they've created. You'll have individual and team-based assignments, and then you'll have weekly team meetings. You within your team decide when you're going to have those meetings, and those meetings are the only part of the program where you have to show up at the same time as others. So as Brett talked about, he didn't want to come back after work and attend a lecture for 2 hours. Well, good, because you wouldn't have to in this program. The materials are already set for you to access in how it makes the most sense for you. Maybe some of you are more morning people, so maybe you'll allocate 6 to 8 a.m. to get 2 hours in each day. Maybe for people that have younger children, maybe you'll wait till they go to bed. However you want to do that. We've had many parents as well that do their homework along with their kids at the kitchen table. Different ways that people have done this, depending on what their other obligations are. With that foundation portion set, you come to campus. That campus might be here in West Lafayette, maybe Santiago, Chile, depending on the program that you're in. And then when you're on campus, we have the classes. We'll talk about a typical structure here in a bit. Company visits, when that's allowed, we've shifted to Zoom guest speakers. In fact, we just had a parliamentarian from the EU speak to our class this morning, so that was pretty neat. Career management support we'll talk about, and then social events as well. Basketball and bowling have been delayed for the moment, but we're finding safe ways to do other types of social events. The great thing with Purdue is that there are very large facilities that small groups can use right now. So tonight we actually have a trivia night for our students as well. We've rented out a fairly large banquet facility that usually would hold 250 people. We'll have 25. So we can do it safely, but still get that experience that people are looking for. After the on-campus residency, you return home. Some will drive, some will fly. And then you have a week to catch up on maybe your other corporate work, but also get ready for exams. Exams are over a 9-day period. They're online, so you take them from home or from work, however you want to balance that out. They're asynchronous, meaning you choose when during that 9-day period you take each of the exams. And so most of them are timed, especially earlier in the program. You download the exam from that Brightspace platform that I mentioned. You take your exam, and when time's up, you upload your answers back into Brightspace. When that exam period is done, you'll typically have a 1-week break, and then you'll start the next pre-residency with new study groups. I want to talk about that for a moment, and then I'll ask Brett a few questions. You saw in the earlier slide the diversity of backgrounds that we bring together. we believe that learning that you gain from people of other functions, other industries is very valuable. Because of that, we in the program form your study teams for you to make them diverse yet balanced, so that you have people from different backgrounds together. And then we change those study teams each module so that you do work with as many different people as possible during your time in the program. And so that ensures that, as we call it, as many new ties are formed. You'll get to know everyone in your cohort. I think Brett would agree with that. Thumbs up on that, Brett? Yes. But certainly when you're on a study team with people, you form even stronger ties with them. So I'll pause with that. And first question for Brett, let's talk about that pre-residency. Often when people see online, they think to themselves self-study, which I don't think is the case, but maybe you can talk what that pre-residency period was like.
Yeah, I would say the pre-residency, it was definitely, it was different for me, but it gives you plenty of time to kind of prepare to get, it's not an overload of classwork, not an overload of reading and so forth. It kind of gets you in the groove of, hey, I've got books and I've got stuff that I need to do. So they kind of slowly bring you into the program and don't just throw everything on you at once. Whereas I hadn't been back to school in 8 years. I hadn't taken a test in 8 years or done anything like that. I basically go to work every day and do my hobbies on the weekends. So I was like, oh gosh, here I go. So it wasn't a major shock, but it starts to prepare you to say, hey, I need to start adding this to my schedule and letting my family know, hey, I'm going to be busy at this time and these times work well for me to study and get my studies done. So I think that pre-residency was key to being successful throughout the rest of the program. And it wasn't just like going straight into residency, throw everything on you, and you're swimming without floaties on per se.
What were your team meetings like? Can you share a little bit about that?
The team meetings at the start, I don't even think we used Zoom.
Probably
what were we using? WebEx?
WebEx.
Yeah, we were doing WebEx. So yeah, we were doing virtual meetings with our cohort. They were, we'd get together once a week. Everybody would plan to have all their studies done, and what you needed to do as a group was due the day before you had your meeting. And then when we were in that meeting, we would say, hey, I had an issue with this homework problem from marketing. Do you guys have any assistance on that marketing project? What are your thoughts on it? And kind of it was more of a brainstorming event. So we would try to dedicate an hour to two. It just depended on the workload to definitely getting that taken care of. And we got to the point where, everybody in your group was friends. So you'd talk for the first 15 minutes and then you'd meet for 2 hours, and then everybody still want to stay on and talk. So that's one key point that Aldas said is, you get in there, and of course, like any situation with 30 other individuals, you're going to become friends, closer friends with a group of 2 or 3 per se than the rest of the group. And you get in there, you're like, well, man, I wish I could have made my own group or made my own cohort for this residency. I wish I could have picked it myself. But I was very pleased that Purdue did that for us, because it gets you to branch out, and you're not always going to have the same team. You're going to inherit somebody else's team when you get a promotion within a company, and it's not going to be the same group of individuals, and you almost learn how to manage others within your team during each residency. So that was awesome.
Thank you. And I believe every cohort, including yours, creates a WhatsApp group, so you're able to share across the students without faculty and staff interaction.
Yeah, we stayed on iPhones. I was a big thing for iPhone texting and so forth, the messenger group. WhatsApp, I have too many notifications on my phone already. But there was one, and you're in that group text with your residency group for every day. I mean, people are going back and forth, and if everybody was so open, I don't think I came across a time where somebody was like, I don't feel like helping you today, or I don't know. It was just a solid group of 27 of us, I think.
about that. Very nice. And talk about the exam period. Again, pretty much all of us are more used to being examined in some large lecture hall potentially. How was this different and how did you manage the process?
I would say the first one was horrible because I hate exams to begin with. So you get home and you've got I'm just sitting there like all super anxiety. Oh my gosh, I'm getting my MBA. I've got 4 exams to take. And at the time telling my girlfriend, like, I can't do anything. I got to study. And, you know, I worked myself up a lot more than I really needed to. And it's nice because they give you a week. So you don't just come home from your residency and you get home on Saturday and then you start taking exams Monday. You get a week off. So you get a week to prepare. And then after that week that you get to prepare, you get a week to take the exams. So if I would say, okay, Tuesday, I'm going to take my marketing exam, you know, Monday evening, I would do some studying for it and prepare Monday evening. And then Tuesday evening, I plan to take that. Wednesday, I'd prepare for another one. Thursday, I'd take the exam. Friday, prepare. Saturday, take the exam. So it's not like you have to have marketing done by noon on a Wednesday, and you have to have accounting done by 2 on a Thursday. Exams had to be submitted, I believe, by Sunday at midnight, a week after they were sent out. So it's definitely, I would say, schedule friendly.
Very good, thank you. I don't know if anyone, I'm going to pause on this, see if there's any questions from other participants for Brett today.
Yeah, I sent one in the chat. How big was your study group? If you had 27 in the cohort?
6 or 7.
Gotcha.
5 or 6.
5 or 6.
We don't do 7-person teams.
Okay,
too
5 or
much.
6.
Clearly, I did not coach Brett on answers today, which is good.
Hey, but that's good. Then you're getting the real perception, I guess.
Hey, Brett, good morning. This is Tom Myers. I do have a question regarding the collaboration between your organization and Purdue. Did you have to get like a commitment letter from your organization or just like a commitment in general from your boss in terms of, you know, leaving for 1-2 weeks at a time?
So my organization was pretty lenient about it. I was supported by the company for a tuition reimbursement. So they wanted me to be successful within it. I did have to use some vacation to be able to do that. But I had I'd been there 5 years and I had the vacation piled up, and my boss, like I said, was super lenient. So if I was out for 2 weeks, maybe he'd make me take 5 days vacation. And that's another thing, you know, it just works, I guess, on your individual basis. But I wouldn't say necessarily to the organization that, hey, I'm away at school, or hey, I'm away at vacation. I would just send out an email, my email request returning to people saying, I'm in training, and I'll get back to you as I can.
Gotcha.
It seems like it'd be a lot more. And that's one thing that I was concerned about. It seems like, hey, you know, this is 6 weeks out of the year, 5 or 6, but it's really when you get away and you're gone, it's not bad at all. And that's one thing that I would suggest is when you're there, you need to make sure that your organization knows that you're there and you need to be there to succeed, because you don't want to be in the middle of class and have to go out and take conference calls and so forth.
Gotcha. No, that's definitely helpful. I wish all of our bosses were that lenient. I guess to the Purdue staff, you know, in terms of, you know, corporate organizations that have very strict policy, you know, is there a letter or is there anything that you could help facilitate to understanding that I need to be at a residency for a week or 2 weeks and really focusing on school so that they understand the importance of, you know, me learning in that type of environment?
Sure, we can provide that if that's needed or would be helpful. So if you or anyone else on today's webinar or watching this at a future point would find benefit from that, just reach out to us and we can certainly provide that letter. No difficulties on that.
Great, thank you.
I'm going to now do a bit of a deeper dive on the two different programs that we have. So we have our Global Executive MBA that starts every March. And here we have 5 residencies, each one 2 weeks each, where we go to 7 countries on 4 continents around the world, more than any other Global Executive MBA program. Its point of bonus, as I like to call it, is one, certainly the cultural and business immersion that you get by going to these countries, meeting with top management, understanding their business challenges and their business models. And here also you earn 2 MBA degrees, one from Purdue and one from our Dutch partner, TIAS. Our traditional EMBA begins every September. And in that program, you have 5 residencies here in West Lafayette. And the last one is a 2-week residency abroad. We were talking with Brett just a year ago. We were returning from Spain from his cohort's residency. The other point of uniqueness in that program is that the electives that we offer are such that we survey the students for ideas, and we use those ideas to develop the curriculum. We are, I believe, the only program in the nation, EMBA program, where the students actually help to set the curriculum and the courses that we're going to offer. And some of the cohorts, they come up with a new idea that we've never tried. It's a great idea, and then we integrate that into our curriculum. Similar courses, about 80–85% of the courses are the same across the 2 programs. Both have the networking and career coaching. Both have a capstone project and cohort-based electives. So it's the same degree, MBA degree, but it just depends on what resonates with you and what fits best with your schedule. But jumping a little bit deeper into the Global Executive MBA, it's a consortium of 6 schools from around the world. These may not be household names here in the United States, but they're certainly well-known, well-regarded in their countries and their regions, strong in either business management and or in technology areas. And in that way, they mirror the foundations of Purdue University as well. And the way the program is set up, we'll have our launch here in about 3 weeks. And then the first residency later this year in June in West Lafayette, giving you that solid foundation. Next residency in Europe, so slowly taking you into that geographic variety. We go then to South America. It'll be winter in North America, summer in South America, so a good time to go. But also a nice contrast between Brazil and Chile. Very different economic systems, very different levels of economic or business friendliness. So understanding how businesses are able to compete and thrive in that environment is useful. Residency 4, we go to the Netherlands. So after residencies 2 and 4, you've been to 3 European Union countries, with very different cultural backgrounds, very different engines of economic growth, and how companies develop in those regions. And then we end with the residency in the Asia Pacific region, currently looking at 4 options: South Korea, or China, or Singapore, or India. So, and then graduating 19 months from the start. And there's a graduation here in West Lafayette at Purdue, and then our Dutch partner TIAS also holds a graduation. The traditional EMBA that Brett graduated from, as you can see, the same idea with the residencies. The first 2 in West Lafayette are 2 weeks each, and so residencies 3, 4, and 5, it drops to 1 week each. It's a bit more front-loaded in terms of workload, and then and more of those functional courses earlier on. Later residencies have more of those electives that we talked about, and then an international residency at the end. All the dates here are fixed except for the international location in February 2023, because the cohort chooses where they're going to go from a range of options. And since the cohort hasn't even started, they haven't had a chance to choose. So it's a neat way as well to have the cohort involved in their own, if you will, educational path. One question that often comes up is the workload. So what I share with people, and then Brett, maybe you can correct me. The first two residencies are certainly in the first two modules are the most challenging. I tell people to plan about 25 hours per week, and then the credit load and workload drops. So residency 3 onward, closer to maybe 15 to 17 hours when you're off campus. I know it's been a while since you had that first residency and first module, Brett, but is that a approximately correct workload?
That's what I would say. Yep, you can expect to do that. You know, like I said earlier, it's just you kind of get into the groove and you figure out what times work best for you, and everybody's got a different at-home situation. So whether it's weekends, or I would always spend a few hours after work. And I started bringing when I was in the office before all this COVID came, I'd bring my lunch to work. Instead of going out for an hour with my coworkers, I'd sit in my office, eat a sandwich, and take care of schoolwork.
So Brett, what was your hardest assignment?
My hardest assignment?
Gosh,
I would say the most difficult assignment would probably be, it was the most difficult, but I learned the most from, would be a finance project where we just took a deep dive into a company that was public and went through all their numbers, balance sheets, all their public data. And we just had to perform, basically we had to make our own balance sheets, profit and losses. And it really made you understand financials, and I'm a numbers guy, so it was awesome. But at the time it was like, oh my gosh, this is never ending.
No, that's great to hear. Thank you.
For the IMM program workload, because the credits are more evenly spread, it's a bit more balanced in terms of workload. So I tell people to plan closer to about 20 hours per week. In both programs, the first residency is the most difficult. As Brett said, people are coming back from not having been in school, usually at least 5 years, potentially more. And my own experience, because I took a break from my studies, you know, being away from school 10 years doesn't mean it's twice as hard as being away for 5 years. After a certain number of years, it's becoming a student again, and taking those skills that made you successful in your professional career and applying them here to be a student again. So here's a typical week on campus. Campus in quotes, because it may be anywhere in the world. It's set up that we have 2 class sessions in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. Typically, it's a different topic between the morning and the afternoon to give you some mental variety. Breakfast, lunch provided, of course. In the evenings, there may be something that we plan. Free evening just means the program hasn't planned anything, but your faculty may have a different idea on how your evening should be spent. Where possible, we add in a company visit. I don't know, Brett, if your group went to the Amazon distribution center, but some have, and so that ties in with the operations class, and we try to have those company visits complement what we're learning that week within the curriculum. One thing I'll point out, and then maybe Brett, you can share as well, the biggest challenge that we see people having, and I think one of the questions points to that, is company support to be away for those residencies. So certainly the benefit of coming to campus is that you can immerse yourself in the learning. And for most people, it takes till about lunch on Tuesday to sort of refocus their brain, their mind, and energy to what's going on campus. So we really want you to be, paying attention. At the same time, we realize that your professional work isn't going to stop. So that's why we have the breaks in the morning, afternoon. You have a lunch break as well to check emails, return a phone call. And I tell people they can probably plan a good hour and a half a day that they can carve out for any of their professional work obligations, so that their boss realizes that while you're immersed in the learning, you're not shut away from the world for those 2 weeks. So Brett, if you could share, you mentioned you had that out of office that you're going to be away for training. Well, was there an expectation for you to be checking the emails or returning a phone call here and there? And about how much time do you think you and or others were able to allocate to that while on campus?
Yeah, so I mean, as needed, of course, you know what, we're all at a level where we know what we need to manage and how to manage it. So if you get a call and you have a break, what is it? You've got their 8:30 to 10 operations. See, yeah, it was a half an hour break. So when you break away, I mean, that's a half an hour of free time. So that's a great time for you to call back to work, get into the office, take care of what's needed in that half an hour, and then get back into the classroom. I want to say through 6 residencies, I may have had to step out of class one time for half an hour, but I let the professor know, hey, I've got a really important conference call. I have to be on it. And, you know, they're understanding. Like I said previously, you don't want to make that a habit, but on an as needed basis, this was for a big project that we were working. And, you know, I couldn't tell the president of the company, well, you need to work around my schedule. And then at night, you do meet with your groups after class, but sometimes we would say, hey, we're done with class at 4:30. Let's meet back at the Cranert Center at 6. So then we could go out there, get caught up on emails for half an hour, go back and kind of rest and relax and regain your brain, and then come back for dinner and working on stuff. So there's definitely time to do it. Everybody does it. In the mornings, you don't start until 8:30. So a lot of people, you'll get there at breakfast, and everybody, I'd get over there for breakfast first thing and kind of eat breakfast and play on my emails and catch up with emails on the phone while I'm talking to other people. So you're not going to be an outcast if you're catching up on work during those break times.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's talk about the tuition. So the tuition is the same for both programs, and it is truly all-inclusive. So all you have to do is get to and from campus, cover some of the meals, and then for international students, there's a semester registration fee. The way that tuition is split up, it's 5 payments of $17,000, and it covers multiple calendar years. So if your organization does a annual cost reimbursement or tuition reimbursement policy, you can leverage that for multiple years while you're in the program.
For the ebooks, you may have mentioned this and I may have missed it. So with the ebook, can we download that and it would be like a saved PDF, or is it just an ebook that we have access to on the Purdue University website and we can't access it later at a later time per se?
Brett, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, so the ebooks were actually, I don't know if you guys are still doing it, but we downloaded them through Amazon. So the school gives you an iPad, and you download the books from Amazon, and it's on your Amazon account. So I still have all my books from when I was there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
With the change, we don't give the iPads out anymore. But
okay,
the other part of the system that Brett described is correct. So yeah, part of the goal was to make sure that the e-textbooks would be available to you in perpetuity, which is why we've gone to that system. Thank you. So benefits to firms, as I mentioned up front, you need to make sure your company is supportive and certainly aware that you're in this program. And so among the benefits that you're getting is certainly the coursework, the fact that after each module, you're already able to implement new things that you're learning in the program. Our alums have shared that they're able to save their companies, either save money and or increase revenue. After graduation, we in the program continue to do online continuing education webinars. Purdue does their own events, and you can be a sponsor for an active learning project where the students work as a consulting team with your organization. So different ways that interaction can continue. And then the other, I'll talk briefly about networking, but I want Brett to weigh in. Every MBA program is going to say they have great networking. What I have seen over and over again is that when you're working with people for 1 or 2 weeks at a time in residency, the strength of the ties that form are just fundamentally different than if you see someone 7 to 10 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday, or 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on a Saturday. When you're working with them day after day, especially in a challenging environment, you're going to bond, you're going to form friendships in a way that another approach cannot, in our view. So I don't know, Brett, what you thought you were going to get in terms of networks and how it actually worked out for you.
Yeah, the networking is a major part of the program, and that's what I've so used to this day. You've got people who are Lean Six Sigma experts. You got people like me that are in sales, and I have no operations background. People in the medical industry, industrial, all over the place. So we had a veterinarian in our class, and she was just going back and getting her MBA, and that's what I use kind of for an example. Is you never think, oh well, you know, the veterinarian, yeah, we worked well together while we were at our MBA program, but she's in Michigan. I'm probably never going to live in Michigan. I'm probably not going to need a veterinarian. When am I going to need to network with a veterinarian? Well, my wife and I, we purchased an optometry practice, and going through insurances and everything else, who do I call? The veterinarian that owns her veterinary practice. And I talk to her all the time on just advice and what she's doing with her practice and so forth like that. So you never know who you're going to cross paths with, and keep that network big, and don't be one-sided. It's been a great network for me.
Awesome, thank you. Career impact. We work with an organization called Right Management now, who work with our students in doing initial assessments, providing a range of resources, many of them surrounding the personal brand building, and then availability for executive career coaching while you're in the program in up to 6 months after graduation. So the idea isn't that you're joining the program to change companies. Half of our students stay with their company 2 years after graduation, but it is how to be more effective either in your current organization or in a different organization. From the Economist survey of a year ago, we find close to 80% of our alumni are promoted within 2 years of graduation. I'd say about another 15% are promoted while they're in the program because they're in the program. So we're in the mid-90s in terms of career impact. And then the impact on salary as well, be it within your current or new organization, tends to be fairly substantial. Financing, certainly another question that people will often have. So many companies do provide some type of tuition support or tuition reimbursement, and many of our students are able to take advantage of that. What we encourage you to do is show the format and the courses to your supervisor. And if needed, we can break the tuition into a per credit hour if there's benefit to that. We have on our website something called the Financial Toolkit. It's a PowerPoint that you can add in your own information to make that presentation within your company. And then from personal support, people will use savings, post 9/11 GI Bill or other Veterans Administration support. 529 accounts are becoming more popular. We provide some limited scholarships here within the program, and then Stafford or Graduate Plus loans. So what we've seen is that $85,000 price, it's a significant investment, but between the company support, savings, loans, and scholarship, people are able to create a financial plan to cover the cost of the program. There's other programs out there for $25,000. There's others out there that are approaching $250,000. But Purdue, as a land-grant university, wants to provide you with a world-class education, but at a price tag that you're not going to be paying for it for another 20 years. Kirsten Reynolds is our point of contact in Purdue's financial aid office. So we encourage you to email her directly if you have questions. It's a large financial aid office at Purdue, but she knows our program specifically, so she's certainly the best person to contact. Then navigating the path regarding next steps. If you've not done so, we encourage you to submit your resume to us for review of fit and whether or not GMAT waiver would be approved for you. as you're looking at other programs, and we think you should, because this is an important decision, we'll compare Purdue with up to 3 other EMBA programs of your choice, so you can use that for your own research and discussions within your company. We can connect you with program alums, so you can hear from them. Brett's one alum we can connect you with, but there's hundreds of others, and we try to match it based on background. Have those discussions as we've talked about. Our next webinar in early April will be on financial planning and scholarships. And then we invite you to come visit us on campus. I know some of you have already been here on campus to visit us, and just sitting in on the class, getting a feel for that experience is a great way to see if this is the right fit for you. We have cohorts coming in April, May, and June. So we encourage you to register for those as well, to build upon what you've learned today. And should you move forward with the application, and we hope you do, it's fairly straightforward. It's a resume, 3 required essays, and a scholarship essay is the 4th one. 2 professional references, transcripts, and a Zoom interview with myself and a second member of our admissions team. And if you're admitted, get ready to be challenged. Brett shared a lot. The word easy never came up today as he talked about the program, and there's a reason for it. It's challenging program, but the rewards are there as well. In terms of deadlines, we actually still have some seats available for the Global MBA starting this March. It's a really great cohort that's come together. And then for our fall start of the traditional EMBA, there you see the July and August deadlines presented as well. Wrapping up, this is proof that people do graduate. They smile when they graduate. And I like this photo, not just because of the energy, but the different backgrounds. The person on the far left, she was in California in the medical sector when she was in the program. After graduation, moved to Virginia, has done a few different types of career shifts during that time. Jesse in the middle was with Cummins, and then after graduation got promoted and moved to Germany with his company. And our friend on the far right works for a Brazilian meatpacking company in Colorado, actually. So again, different industries, and the neat thing is that ability to be learning from each other as you go through the program. And again, I'm Aldas Kriauciunas. Nancy Schmiegel is our Associate Director of Admissions, and some of you have also interacted with Brian Grimes, our Associate Director for Recruiting. So I'm going to stop with that and see if there's any other questions for Brett or myself.
Aldous, do you limit the number of students from an organization?
So we do. We would cap it at 20% of the cohort. So about 4 or 5 people is the most that we would have from one company at one time.
Okay.
Part of the reason is that with 25, we'll have 5 study teams, and each person would be on a different study team. So again, we're trying to create new ties, and then, so typically we would not put 2 people from the same organization on one study team. Thank you. So maybe a question for you, Brett. And so what surprised you the most between what you thought and the program itself?
What surprised me the most?
Right, because everyone has a certain set of expectations. So what was different, and because everyone on the webinar today also has a certain set of expectations. So what was sort of a surprise factor that you never would have thought of that came up?
I would say a surprise factor for me was the, everybody talks about their MBA and in depth and so forth, and there's all these online options, and yeah, you can go and do your weekend options and so forth. But what I didn't really understand when wasn't aware of when we went through all this stuff, and I was in my admissions process. The big shocker was for me was the end project. What did we call that?
ALP
I-
project.
Yeah, the ALP. So we did ours on a large FCA, and we went through and we basically put everything that we have learned in the program, and this was between residencies 4 and 5 or 5, I can't remember now. I think it was between 4 and 5. So our group put everything that we learned together, and we went to a large corporation, and we basically said, what's your problem? We're here to fix it. And then we put all of our resources together, because everybody in your group, like I previously said, I'm the sales guy. I don't know any operations. Well, our big problem with our company was an operational problem. But then I was able to put what I learned in my operations class and what I learned from other people on my team. We were able to compile our resources, and it was pretty cool. It got me onto the operations side and gave me a respect for the operations team within my own organization. So I think that was the biggest surprise, and I didn't see that coming. And that's what I enjoyed the most, is being able to kind of wrap everything together and come whole with the MBA.
Very nice. And you make a good point that while you came into the program not knowing operations, you left knowing operations. And even if that's not your functional area, you were actually able to work on an operations project and contribute to it. And that's part of the goal with these ALP projects, is to give you something that isn't what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, but again, take you out of your comfort zone, stretch you mentally, so that you can try something and apply your skills in a different area. Because, going to, Brett's point, he didn't finish an MBA in sales. He finished an MBA for a general manager. A general manager should be able to take the set of skills and apply them into different industries and different functional areas, and still be able to be effective and contribute to others. So thank you. And maybe I'll last question, what advice would you give to others thinking about doing an executive MBA program?
Sorry, others to what?
What advice would you give to people on today's webinar or in the future who are thinking about doing an EMBA program?
Yeah, my advice, bar none, would be do the EMBA program. I remember when I went into while I was in the admissions, I went and I did a visit on campus, and I sat next to a lady. She worked at State Farm, and she said, I've got another coworker, and she's doing an online program, and she said, it's through the University of Illinois. It's a well-known online program, blah, blah, blah. But when she comes up against a problem with marketing, or she doesn't know how to do a finance equation or figure out a balance sheet, she has nobody to talk to. It's in the online world. She has no networking. You don't know who else is in that class with you besides a list from the professor's Zoom meeting per se. So the MBA, I'm a hands-on type of person. I like to network and talk to people. I like to know that I can ring somebody up. I'd like to know that I can ring Aldas up if I have an issue. I knew that I had the support, and that support was worth going to Purdue and getting that versus doing it online and not really, talking to your computer.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Certainly, if you have any other questions after today's webinar, feel free to reach out to myself, Brian, Nancy. We can certainly also connect you to Brett, and he can answer any other questions that you may have. So I hope I see everyone around campus in the future. Again, come for a campus visit, or some of you I know are further along in the process. So I look forward to welcoming you to the program as well. And we're here to help support you in any way possible. Thank you, Brett, very much.
Thanks, Alden.
Thank you, everyone.